Okay, so this story fills me full of hope. It really does. Who's going to explain 2022 72 plate cars with delivery mileage being advertised for the first time today, 27 months after they were reported sold? I hope it doesn't take as long as this has, but let me read it and then I'll apply my logic to this story. Multiple car manufacturers and SMMT fined 460 million for collusion. Car manufacturers and the SMMT fined 460 million for collusion. This is 2nd of April. 16 car manufacturers, Society of Motor Manufacturer and Traders, SMMT, and the European Automobile Manufacturers Association, ACEA, have been fined a total of 460 million for colluding over the advertising of what percentage of their vehicles could be recycled. You would think that they're exaggerating. Dieselgate, exaggerate. Used EV sales, exaggerate. New EV sales, exaggerate. When you know it's not true, the SMMT must know it's not true. They must know that the figures they're reporting aren't technically correct. They're not sales. I've just, I show you in every video, they're not sales. Not all of them. Has been going on in the motor trade for years, but not on as grand a scale as it is now. So you'd be forgiven for thinking here that the recycling percentage has been exaggerated, that they're gonna, each manufacturer is gonna be able to recycle 99% of everything. No, they've agreed not. Let me read it. Let me read it, because I can't do it for laughing. The joint investigation, which was launched in 2022 and conducted by the European Commission and the UK's Competition and Markets Authority, CMA, found 16 car makers were involved, as well as the 2 trade bodies. The trade bodies. I understand the car makers. I get it, I know. And to be honest, I can also tell you that in years go by, they've done all sorts of things that they never got caught for. They also colluded to avoid paying third parties to recycle their customers' scrap cars, the watchdog said. Now again, this I find very, very interesting, because I didn't know. I didn't know this. The CMA has issued fines totaling 77.6 million to BMW, Ford, Jaguar, Land Rover, that's JLR, Peugeot, Citroen, Mitsubishi, Nissan, Renault, Toyota, Vauxhall, Volkswagen, the SMMT and ACEA. The CMA fines include a 20% settlement discount to reflect that the manufacturers and trade bodies admitted their role in the infringement. Infringement? It's not an infringement. And agreed to cooperate with the CMA. For example, Ford has been ordered by the CMA to pay 18.5 million, VW 14.8 million, BMW 11.1 million, and JLR 4.6 million, while the SMMT was fined £46,800. A spokesman for the SMMT told Automotive Management's sister title, Fleet News, that it fully cooperated with the CMA's investigation and accepts its findings. So up here, the settlement discount, that's basically pleading guilty. You've got caught red-handed. You can pay a load to a barrister to try and defend you and get you off or get your sentence reduced. But, you know you've done it. You know you've been caught with your hand in the till. Just accept your punishment. Hope they'll go easy on you, which in this case, 20% they did. I'd like to know where the money's going, to be fair. The trade body said it takes its competition law obligations extremely seriously and has thoroughly reviewed and bolstered its protocols to safeguard current and future compliance. But yet it reported in July 2023 that EVs were flying off the shelf and a new one was registered every 60 seconds. I did ask them at the time how many seconds they thought there were in July, because, you know, I couldn't quite get it to match up. Mind you, I didn't have ChatGPT then, so it was just on my calculator. But yeah, every 60 seconds, which I don't believe is true. I don't believe the figures that they're reporting on are true. And I also think that there's a certain amount of rounding up which accounts for a lot of vehicles. There's a certain amount of wording that can be taken two ways. But anyway, it's bolstered its protocols to safeguard current and future compliance. Mercedes-Benz, which was also partial to the agreement, reported the suspected conduct to the CMA and therefore benefits from immunity from any fine under its leniency policy. So they turned state's evidence, they got out before the posse, whatever you want to call it. They grassed on everybody else in return for zero fines, by the look of it. They got immunity. Fines totaling 458. That's like, you know, robbing a bank with a group of people and then grassing on them, even though you did it as well, but they let you off. Fines totaling 458 million euros, 382.6 million, have been issued by the European Commission to the same manufacturers named in the CMA action, along with Volvo, Mazda, Hyundai, Kia and Honda. When setting its fines, the European Commission took into account the lesser involvement in the infringement of Honda, Mazda, Mitsubishi and Suzuki. It also granted a reduction to Renault, since evidence showed that Renault had explicitly asked for an exemption from the agreement not to advertise the use of recycled material in new cars. Stellantis, including Opel, Mitsubishi and Ford, also benefited from a reduction of the fine for their cooperation with the Commission. Renault Nissan received the highest fine from the Commission at 81.4 million, £68 million, while Stellantis, as parent company of Vauxhall, Peugeot, Citroen and Fiat, must pay 74.9 million euros, £62.5 million. But you know the funny thing? The funny thing is they've been fined all this money for not exaggerating the claims, but for agreeing not to advertise that their cars were more recyclable than somebody else's. That's a, you know, these people that are buying EVs, that's a major selling point to them. They want to save the planet. They want the cars to be as recyclable as possible. So why have they done that? Because it will cost them more money to make the cars more recyclable. That's why they've done it. Listen to this. Among other sustainability information, manufacturers are legally required to include details on recyclability in their advertising materials, so customers can take this into account when considering a vehicle's green credentials before buying. In this case, the investigation found that all manufacturers illegally agreed that they would not advertise if their vehicle went above the minimum recyclability. Went above. They wouldn't advertise that. If their vehicles went above the minimum recyclability requirement of 85%, even if the actual percentage was higher, they won't advertise the good thing. That basically means that they'll get to 85%, then they're going to stop looking for other ways. That's what it's doing. It's costing them too much money. They're going to stop looking for ways to recycle cars. Another thing that I didn't know coming up, with the exception of Renault, the manufacturers also agreed not to share information with their customers about the percentage of recycled materials used in their vehicles. Again, the green thing. Why would they do that? Failing to compete against one another in this way is illegal. It also meant customers buying a car from one of these manufacturers were unable to fully compare the green credentials of the vehicles when buying, which could have affected their choices. This kind of behaviour may also lower the incentive for companies to invest in green initiatives. In all fairness, don't you think they've already invested enough and blown the brains out trying to sell EVs? You know, they're looking, I understand, I feel sorry for them. They've gone about it wrong. They should have stood up to the government and said, stick your ZEV mandate up your arse. It's impossible. Nobody will be able to do it. It will cost us fortunes. It will cost us jobs. We're not doing it. Most manufacturers took part in this practice from May 2002 to September 2017, with JLR joining in September 2008. The agreement was set out in a document called the ELV Charter, sometimes referred to as a gentleman's agreement, and sought to avoid a competitive race amongst the manufacturers in relation to advertising claims of this kind. The agreement was referenced in emails, internal documents and meeting minutes, and certain manufacturers challenged others when they breached this agreement. Buyer's cartel. Vehicle manufacturers must offer their customers. Now listen to this. This is what I didn't know. Buyer's cartel. Vehicle manufacturers must offer their customers a free service for recycling their old or written off vehicles having no or negative market value, known in the industry as end-of-life vehicles or ELVs. And this service is regularly outsourced to third parties. Now, the amount of, when scrap metal was at its lowest, the amount of cars that we scrapped where you had, I mean, they weren't worth repairing. And it cost you like 80 quid to get somebody to come and pick them up. I didn't know that. I want my money back. This has never been put, I've been in the motor trade for 50 years, I didn't know that. So, the CMA's investigation revealed that certain manufacturers were involved in what is known as a buyer's cartel in relation to this service. From April 2004 to May 2018, 8 manufacturers, BMW, Ford, Mercedes-Benz, Peugeot, Citroen, Renault, Toyota, Vauxhall and Volkswagen, agreed amongst themselves that they would not pay companies to handle the recycling of their customers' ELVs. This effectively meant the companies providing this service were unable to negotiate a price with the manufacturers. Yeah, they've agreed a price. They're not going to do it. So nobody will pay them. They can't go and say, oh, well, I'll do it for you. Nobody will pay them. And they are supposed to get rid of your old scrap cars. While companies supplying this recycling service can often make money from ELVs, end-of-life vehicles, by retrieving and selling the used parts and raw materials, how profitable it is can vary depending on the price of scrap metal at any given time, which is what I just said. Other companies and bodies later joined the unlawful agreement, including the ACEA, the SMMT, Nissan and Mitsubishi in 2006, and Jaguar Land Rover in 2016. Who's not going to get money for a Jaguar Land Rover? Don't be stupid. Colluding to agree prices in this matter is illegal. It can impact the incentive for other companies to invest, for example, in better and greener technologies. Trade association involvement. The manufacturers used ACEA meetings to facilitate these arrangements, with the association itself chairing meetings and intervening when manufacturers acted outside of the terms. The SMMT also attended these meetings and likewise became involved by settling a handful of disputes. Lucilia Falzarelli Pereira, Senior Director of Competition Enforcement at the CMA, said agreeing with competitors the prices you'll pay for a service or colluding to restrict competition is illegal, and this can extend to how you advertise your products. This kind of collusion can limit consumers' ability to make informed choices and lower the incentive for companies to invest in new initiatives. She concluded, "We recognise that competing businesses may want to work together to help the environment. In those cases, our door is open to help them do so." They didn't. They wanted to do the opposite. Okay, so Baz has taken his glasses off. This shit's just got real. What about if you all pre-registered a load of vehicles and hid them, pretending that there's big waiting lists on, well, for argument's sake, let's say electric vehicles. So you hide them and you keep the price artificially high. No discount. I'm sorry, Mr. Customer. I wish I could. But if you don't buy it, we've got 10 other people wanting to buy it. Well, what you should have said is, please buy it. I can't do my target. We've had to pre-register 100 vehicles and hide them. That's closer to the truth. So what if the manufacturers did that? What if the SMMT knew they were doing that? Wouldn't be good, would it? What if they investigated that? What do you think they'd find? Who's going to explain 2022 72 plate cars with delivery mileage being advertised for the first time today, 27 months after they were reported sold? Who's going to explain that? Who's going to explain that infringement? Because I'll tell you what, that infringement makes that one look insignificant. In my eyes, private people, not about recycling, not about limiting their ability to make a choice, taking money off them, ripping them off, charging them more for vehicles than they're actually worth because they've all colluded to make fictitious reports, to pre-register vehicles, to then sell them to leasing companies and report them as used too. All that makes that look trivial, a trivial infringement. I really hope that they are investigated. I really hope they're brought to task, and I also really hope that in the future there will be an investigation into the EV shills, where their money's come from and why they're saying things that clearly aren't true. How can you get away with claiming that you can save £2,600 if you buy an Audi e-tron when a dealer's put one down by £55,000 or £4,000 since that claim was made in writing in a news article? Dealers have dropped them. How can you do it? Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.